Hey everyone, welcome to another video. So in this video, we'll try and understand two major changes that have come about in the return filing process from 2026. And this is being mentioned in the advisory dated 30th of Jan 26, which is lying on the GST portal. Now, what this advisory says is with respect to one, cross utilization of ITC or basically GST that you pay on your purchases. And number two, the payment of interest has become more streamlined on the GST portal. So let's do a deep dive into these two changes and understand how significantly this has changed the return filing process from Jan 2026. The first thing is with respect to the cross utilization of input tax credit. Now earlier, there was a prescribed mechanism under which you had to utilize your GST against the input tax credit. For example, let's say you have a lot of interstate supplies. Basically, you have to end up paying integrated GST, IGST, and you have a lot of intrastate purchases within the same state for which you pay CGST and SGST. So for your interstate sales, you have a lot of IGST tax, and your set-off mechanism worked in this way. First, you got to utilize your entire IGST ITC lying in your electronic credit ledger in your wallet on the GST portal. And then once this is fully exhausted, then number two rank would be to CGST ITC, exhaust this. And then the last would be to utilize the SGST ITC. So there was a rank in terms of utilization of ITC. First would be against IGST tax, first would be IGST, and then CGST, and then SGST. This is what was prescribed on the GST portal. With this advisory, the portal now allows flexible cross utilization of input tax credit, which basically means that if you have IGST tax on your interstate sales, then the first criteria is to fully exhaust IGST ITC and then utilize SGST or CGST in any manner as you wish. Either you can utilize SGST first or you can utilize CGST first, depending upon in which tax head you have got more input tax credit line. Now, this helps a lot of taxpayers because earlier what used to happen is for a lot of interstate sales where you have IGST tax, for a lot of intrastate purchase where you have CGST and SGST, you got to first utilize IGST against IGST and then against CGST. Therefore, your SGST ITC remained accumulated for a long period of time. It amounted to a lot of ITC and you really couldn't utilize it and you had to pay it. But now with respect to the cross utilization of ITC has become more flexible on the portal. The portal now allows utilization of CGST or SGST ITC against IGST tax in any manner. So the criteria number one stays as it is. Against IGST liability, you first utilize IGST ITC fully and then either SGST or CGST or CGST and SGST in whatever manner as you wish. So this will help a lot of taxpayers in utilizing credits lying on the GST portal for a very long time. The second change is with respect to the calculation of interest, which they've made it more streamlined. Now, to understand this change, let us take the help of an example. Say for Jan 2026, you got to file a GSTR 3B. The due date of filing GSTR 3B for Jan 2026 would be 20th of Feb 2026. Let's say for some reason, you missed out the due date and you filed it on 26th of Feb 2026. Of course, when you do your GSTR 3B for the next month, for the Feb month, you will have interest being auto calculated or auto populated, and then you have to check that. Normally, the calculation formula for interest is that whatever tax you had to pay on 20th of Feb, but you are paying on 26th of Feb, let's say for example 80,000 rupees, that you have to multiply with the interest rate, mostly it is 18%, into per annum rate, right? So 6 days of delay by 365, you get the interest amount, which will be auto-populated and worked out in the next GSTR 3B. Now, this was a normal calculation of interest. Now, what the advisory says is that there was a particular rule called 88B proviso, which said that if you had deposited some money in the electronic cash ledger prior to the due date of filing GSTR 3B, and for some reason, procedurally, you made a mistake in filing GSTR 3B, then your interest calculation will be computed taking into account how much of cash you deposit into the electronic credit cash ledger. In other words, taking the same example, let's say you have a 6-day delay in filing GSTR 3B, but before the due date of GSTR 3B, which is 20th of Feb, let's say on 19th of Feb, you deposited because you did not know the liability, you had deposited an ad hoc amount, let's say 1 lakh, into the electronic cash ledger. Because of the 6-day delay, you have to pay interest, and the interest formula will now include whatever balance is lying in your electronic credit ledger, which basically means that if 80,000 rupees still continues to be your liability, you end up paying zero interest because you already deposited 1 lakh prior to the due date of filing GSTR 3B 20th of Feb. So because you deposited 1 lakh into the electronic cash ledger on 19th of Feb, one day before the filing due date of GSTR 3B for Jan 26, you end up paying zero interest in this case. Let's say you deposit not 1 lakh 60,000 rupees before 20th of Feb 2026. Then in this calculation, 80, which is your GST liability, minus 60 because you have maintained that cash balance from the due date till date of filing GST 3B because you have done a deposit prior to the due date on the electronic cash ledger. And then 80 minus 60 into interest into 6 by 365 would turn out to be your interest that you would have to pay. So the GST advisory note very simply states that if you had deposited some amount of money prior to the due date of filing GSTR 3B for the purpose of filing, whatever is your interest calculation, that will include the minimum balance lying in the electronic cash ledger, which is a great change, a great amendment on the GST portal, which now aligns with this Rule 88B proviso, which is already inside the GST Act. But I hope I was able to make things clear in this particular video. If you like the video, you could show support to us by hitting the like button. If you want more videos on a regular basis through your notifications, you could also think waiting on the subscribe button. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and thank you.